Here we go, and we are live. Amat, thank you so much for joining us. We have a room full of people here who have just...
Okay. Hello.
I'm going to start off by asking you some questions, and then I shall open it to the floor and get some questions from the audience as well. I guess I want to start in terms of where the inspiration for this story came from, for Heli.
Well, I guess... I started to write the movie many years ago, about 5 years ago or more now, and it was things change a lot on the way. I took so long because we were trying to get the funds for the film, and in that time I was able to write and rewrite the story. Well, I remember the first few images I had of the movie were of a young man looking for his father in the countryside. Just as an image with the mystery of why is he looking, etc. And that's how the movie used to start. And so that feeling was kind of the inspiration, visual inspiration at the beginning, which kind of got at the end. The movie doesn't really have that anymore. It does have a little bit of it, but when Eli goes to look for his father with the police, but it's really kind of out of the film. And then I wanted to shoot a movie around this factory that I live by in Guanajuato, this car assembly plant, and that had installed itself a few, like 30 years ago, and many families came to live there, and I wanted to make a story about a family of these families that came to establish themselves nearby because they worked there, and then. I wanted to tell an exciting story and stuff, and it was easy for me to find the drama with everything that is happening in Mexico with corruption and violence and the abandonment of many people in society, that I wanted to show with this story.
That was something I wanted to ask in terms of if you feel you have a certain sense of, I guess, responsibility with being, with the honesty of this film.
Well, I really, I don't think one as a filmmaker or anybody that creates a book or a painting or a song, not that there is no responsibility, of course, but it's difficult to have that in mind when you're making something. I think it can be dangerous to feel as if you are doing some kind of responsible for something. No, I don't know. I wasn't thinking of that. The film really comes from me being, my how do you say, indignation of how things are going on in Mexico.
Yeah.
This virus that has invaded many parts of Mexico, and I made the movie as my feeling of, let's say, my scream of that situation. No? But it's not. I wasn't thinking of any responsibility as far as having to show something to people. It's just I wanted to show what I was telling them in the most visually pure way possible, so that the audience wouldn't feel like I was trying to tell them some kind of a point of view or something. I was just trying to show, as purely as possible the situations that I had. Also, that I had curiosity of watching somehow. This scene with the young young men torturing the Beto. Yeah. That scene, it's something that. I wanted to explore somehow. I wanted to get into that hole and see how all those images that we're already used to watching in Mexico, as far as the newspapers are hanging, the decapitated bodies, all these images that we end up seeing. I wanted to see behind that, further than that, see how could that happen? Who would do that? And I'm not in the film. I mean, I'm not saying all people that commit these horrendous acts are young kids and teenagers, but that's what worries me the most, that the young future generations are doing that, and I wanted to put the finger on it let's say, in the movie.
You've done that incredibly powerful, I think, anyway. I wanted to ask you about casting the film because Helly, Armando, who plays Helly, is I think is brilliant, and also the young actress who plays Estella. How did you? I mean, that last kind of couple of scenes where she's on the couch and you just hold that shot on her, she's just kind of lying there, and you feel like you're almost entering her, trying to enter her thought process as to what she's thinking and looking at her eyes and stuff. It's incredible. How did you cast the film?
Oh, thank you. Well, at the same time as we were trying to find the money and writing the movie, we were doing casting. So it took also it didn't take 5 years, but it was a process that was able to allow 5 years of it for it to happen. So we were looking all the time, along with a team of friends, including my brother Martin, who helps me with the castings of all my movies. And he found Stella, who is Andrea Vergara. He found her in the street on a Sunday with her family, and he took a picture of her, and I saw the picture, and I was, impacted or attracted by that image of her, and I thought it could be interesting to meet her and see if she worked for the film. And then I met her, and she was very lucid, very intelligent young girl, and she. I could see that she could do it for sure, and that's it. She was young; she was 12 years old when we shot the movie, but she has a very good imagination and very smart. So it was a lot of things worked in that way. She had a special technique. She's not an actress, of course, so now she wants to be an actress, but she wasn't at the time. And she had a special technique that if she yawned, like if she was tired, and opened her mouth, tears would start to come out of her eyes. So many times before a scene, she would do this. I would tell her, start yawning, and then tears would come out, and we could shoot the scene, and it was good.
Wow.
And besides that, she could, besides the tears, she could also act convincingly for me.
Yeah, and what about Armando?
Armando Spitia, who's Eli, he was. We did part of the casting in Guanajuato, where we shot the film, which is a town 5 hours away from Mexico City, where I live and where I shot the movie. And then my friend, who I co-wrote the movie with, Gabriel Reyes, he was doing casting in Mexico City, and he was looking at mostly people from acting schools. So he concentrated in not just schools, but many actors, like people that wanted to act. So he was concentrated in that in Mexico City, and that's where Armando Spitia came to do the casting. He was from a theater school that he had to get out of to make the movie, but he wants to be an actor now, and it's going well for him. It was very difficult to cast him. I think because I had too much pressure on the main character. The movie was called Eli, and I was having difficulty filling that part. Mostly it was I had a block. I don't know how to say. I didn't let myself choose in a way. I could never choose anybody, and it was really we were a bit more than a week away from shooting, and I wasn't 100% convinced of who, and he was confirmed very near the shooting, at least a week, because we took him to live in that town before the shooting, so he would he's from Mexico City, so there's people from Mexico City are very different than in some towns in Mexico. They don't get much sun. The way they speak, etc. So he had to get sun and learn some ways, some words and things that would make him sound more like from there. We also put some scars in his face and cut his hair short. We did a lot of stuff because the way that I first saw him was, very long hair, pale, glasses. And so it was difficult to imagine, but there was something, I guess, behind that I thought was going to show and work for for the movie, and it's a bit. Oh, it's always a risk whoever you put in front, but it's a big risk, and you have to think about it and stuff. You know.
Okay, I've probably talked enough for now. We've got a room full of people, so if you want to put your hands up, and we'll get a microphone to you. And if Amat can't hear, then I'll reiterate the question. So who would like to? Anyone want to ask a question in the room? I mean, I have plenty more if you don't. So if you're just enjoying sitting back and hearing me wang on, then feel free. But hands up if you have a question. Great, it's me. I'm going to continue on. It's brilliant. I guess in terms of the other things for me that stood out from the film were things like, you just explained a little bit in terms of the differences between, where you shot in Mexico City, for example, which is, it's kind of what we see most of from media and things. And the landscape for me was something that really sort of stood out and kind of stuck in my memory in terms of the barrenness and kind of quite bleak as well. And I know that that's where you set the film, but did that have a relationship for you in terms of the story as well, and how you told the story?
Well, many of the ideas, and when I'm writing, I usually go and walk to the mountains, which are 10 minutes away from my house, and the mountains and the places I go to walk are those that I filmed. As I go there, I get inspired, and I like the image, and so I write a lot to do with the landscape. As I had mentioned at the beginning, since the first image I had was of a guy looking for somebody or something in the countryside, I imagined very well at that moment where that was. So I guess the ideas of the story come along. In this case, came along with the locations and with the setting as in synchronization, let's say. So it's difficult for me to differentiate what your question exactly, but of course that it ends up being very important because that is the initial inspiration has to do with the landscape, including the fact of the idea of also wanting to be around the factory, which is specific of a location, of course, and how that factory changed the location because this General Motors company that came in about 25, 30 years, there was nothing there. It was just countryside, and then they come, and then towns start to pop up very nearby quickly because people go there to work, to live around there. So this impact, I wanted to show that. Well, not to show that impact. I just wanted to film in it. I wasn't interested in telling in the Q&A, it's okay to say, but in the movie, that's not something I wanted to show. But it was a place I wanted to film in. These new places, kind of new houses that people build without much order. They build them wherever they want, and they buy a small piece of land, etc. And so it had, it was in sync when I was creating the ideas, the locations, basically.
What were the biggest challenges that you faced when making this film, would you say?
Well, it's not the way that it's not a dogma of mine, but I somehow it's what's closest to me, easiest, is to use people that I find in the street or that I know that are not actors usually, because I like to work with what is around me. And in Guanajuato, in the city where I shot the movie, there's it's not all the actors are in Mexico City, basically. I mean. The actors that would work for film properly, so I like to work with what's nearby, and many people are not actors, and sometimes that becomes difficult. Sometimes they work very well in the casting, and then when you put them in front of a camera with a crew, they're not able to speak, things like that, that I had to adjust the script or adjust the situation. That was quite frustrating. That was difficult, but I mean, there's nothing that's. I mean, it was difficult to wake up early, also, but I mean, I don't. There's not much. I mean, there was many. It's difficult to make a movie, but it's not that. It's not more difficult than working in a construction or something. So it's not. I feel lucky that I was able to make a movie, and I had a good 9. It was 9 weeks of shooting with a crew that we were all believing in what we were doing and stuff, and it turned out, and everything is fine. So uh, I think all the process is always difficult. The preparing, looking for the money was frustrating and took longer than usual. It was 2 more years than usual, so it took 4 years instead of two. Usually it takes about 2 years to find money for these types of movies. And then shooting was, of course, also difficult. And then editing took about 5 months of editing, and that was also kind of stressful and difficult, and etc. Now it's always, but once it's done and people start watching it, then it's a nice reward.
You can relax, almost. Can I ask specifically about that scene that you mentioned earlier, the torture scene, and how you shot that, and in particular that the burning scene, as I shall refer to it, which I'm sure had a lasting impression on our audience here. How did you shoot that scene?
Well, many things in the film were taken from reality, no? But that specific, in a practical way, that specific scene I didn't really ever see or anything, but I know that it would happen. No? And then later on, after I made the movie, we found out, we saw videos and stuff of situations that were exactly like that, with very young boys committing the crimes. No? So it was just something that was logical for it to happen, and I didn't really do research either. There was no need to do research, really, because it's something that is everything that the movie shows, everybody knows in Mexico. It's just about how I'm showing it, or the angle I am choosing to show it from. No? And so in that way, that scene, kind of in the conscious of Mexicans, it's something that we somehow know, and we have not seen, but we know that it happens, and to see it, to actually film it, was something that was kind of the inspiration. To actually see that it's not ghosts, it's not monsters that are committing those acts that we see so much. I wanted to show a situation where that actually could happen, where these young people are basically abandoned by society, I feel. They're not taken care of. And not that the government needs to take care of everybody, but it is a society that needs to take care of its own people if we choose to live in a society, no? So when that doesn't work, I think what happens in that room ends up being a possibility of happening, no? As it is in Mexico. And that's kind of what I wanted to show there. They were not actors, none of them, except Armando. But all the rest were not actors, so it was kind of a difficult scene in a practical way to shoot, because it was 2 days. We were all stuck in this very small room, very hot, and trying to create, basically making it believable. That was the main challenge. And having also a very young boy there, who was, I think, 8 or 9, the one that that hits him at the last. All those situations, of course, the way that one ends up filming them is in a good humor way. We all try to be the best. I mean, we're not going to be shooting that as if we're actually shooting a torture scene. We try to do the complete opposite. It's all fun and games, when we're shooting it. Otherwise, it would become kind of unbearable. So the actual shooting, of course, is not the way that it seems at the movie. And the burning, it's something that I imagine somehow. Maybe if somebody analyzes the film, they can say something about manhood and etc. Because there's also the Eli being sexually frustrated with his wife, etc. And then then there's it was a special effect, of course. There's no burning, anything like that. Also, the dogs, that are shown to be killed, it's all special effect. Nothing, no dog was harmed or anything. The small puppy is a very big dog now, and he's happy.
Yay!
Yeah.
I think we've got a question. It would be a nice way to finish up.
I've got 2 questions. One, to return to the short picture of one general. For the first question, actually, sort of thing that stuck out to me, they were using cricket bats, and of course, Mexico is not known as it. And this is kind of a random source of history in the American cemetery, so I just wonder why you chose this particular method of and whether in fact a version.
Let's ask that one. Let's ask that one first. Did you hear that, Amat?
No.
Okay, so I'll shorten it. Basically, gentleman's asking about that thing we were just talking about, and how the item used for torture is a cricket bat, and Mexico not being known as a nation that is big on cricket. Why that particular form of torture is used?
That is not what critic-wise. I didn't understand that.
A cricket bat. See, I didn't see a cricket bat. I saw it as just a plank of wood with a.
Yeah, it turned out to look like a cricket bat, but I guess I don't know. I'm not sure if it is. But yeah, they made that. The idea was that they made that specifically to hit people, and that's how it turned out, type of thing. It was carved, supposedly.
Little did they know. And then he has one more question. If you just want to tell me, and then I can ask you.
Edith,
yeah.
I was going to ask Amat about the time scale of the film. I wasn't sure how long the events were taking place over.
Okay. Yeah.
The child seemed to age,
I guess that's what she went through. The gentleman's asking about the time frame of the film in terms of, how long the time frame was from the kind of start to end.
So the time in the film, no, like I would say it's supposed to be a year, because or at least 6 months actually, a year or 6 months. Sorry, yeah, so it's about 6 months.
Great. Amat, thank you so much for your time across there in Los Angeles. You're there for a festival, is that right?
Yes, it's a festival of Mexican movies. Yeah.
Well, we wish you all the success with it, and thank you so much for your time. And for those people who may be online who haven't seen the film today, it's in the UK on 23rd of May. Matt, thank you so much.
Thank you, and goodbye to everybody. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Thank you.